So thank you for joining us for the second edition of the Bent Not Broken SPS Patient Panel. We are an international panel. This is our second meeting and we will have more. The chief purpose, though, is to react to Celine Dion's I Am Celine Dion documentary about stiff person syndrome and her incredible struggle. This group, Bent Not Broken, was created by Leah Jabra Fayed. She created the social media presence dedicated to the awareness of SPS, but also other rare diseases. And this group is also interested in worldwide understanding of SPS and also fundraising. And I was thinking about the wording here, ladies, not just for treatments that are effective or treatments that don't almost kill you at times, but for the reduction of suffering of patients who have SPS. I feel each of you is devoted to this. So let's go around the circle and introduce yourselves. Leah, why don't we begin with you?
Hi, my name's Leah. So as Kimberly said, I'm the one who created the Instagram page Bent Not Broken, which led to other initiatives and which made me meet all these wonderful women who are really my backbone today. Where am I today? I just got back home from, have to make the joke, from 2 surgeries, which were meant to be one, but I'll explain that later at some point. And I'm happy to be home and happy to be filming.
Yeah, we are happy you're able to make it. In fact, we had to delay the meeting here because of those unexpected double surgeries. But we're really glad that you're feeling better, at least for now. All right, Joy, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? I know your Wi-Fi is spotty. You haven't been able to watch the documentary, but your voice is important. So tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Joy Luangu from Nairobi, Kenya. Yeah, I've known these girls and ladies, okay, girls, through social media. It feels like I know them personally. Never met any of them, but it's nice to be here. And I'm in a good place. I can actually speak. I've not been able to do that in the past because of stiff person syndrome.
Right. When I first met Joy and first interviewed you, you could just barely speak in a whisper. SPS had really impacted your vocal cords. So, Ilea, tell us where you are with your stethoscope around your neck.
So I am at Yale New Haven Hospital. I'm a Connecticut girl now, a Navy brat, but we've been here a long time in Connecticut. And I am currently at the hospital because my dad has been inpatient for 2 weeks. So although usually I call it my beddy spot, so wherever I am in the bed, usually about 20 hours a day. And if that's a good day, 4 hours out, a Starbucks run with my mom through the drive-through, maybe, something I call getting my nails done PT. Usually I'd be in the bed. Yesterday I got whisked off for an ultrasound of my own fistula, which got operated on last week. It doesn't look great, but we don't know. So I have an appointment tomorrow. I might be here longer than my dad, so that's that. That's where I am.
All right. We hope your dad gets better soon and he's lucky that you're by his side. Angela.
Yes. Hello, I'm Angela Davis. I'm currently living in High Point, North Carolina, U.S. And I've had SPS since birth. I'm 48 years old. I was officially, after a very long, decades-long diagnostic odyssey, diagnosed with SPS in 2014. So I am sitting in my living room chair. I am far too rigid in throughout my entire body to stand or really walk well. If I'm not in my chair, I'm desperately trying to have enough medication in me to help me to lie down flat and sleep through the night. It's very difficult for me to bend my body or try to lie down and sit up or stand up. It's quite a process. So I'm usually in my chair and yes, doing everything I can to push through legislation for patients like us and get all the help we need.
Awesome. And Angela was instrumental in passing the CARES Act, and part of her testimony about having SPS impacted that. So well done. Allie, talk to us, the new mom of the bunch.
Hi, my name is Allison Lafferty States. I am currently in Fallon, Nevada. For any Top Gun fans out there, you'll know that this town is where Top Gun was filmed. Top Gun 2 was filmed, and it's where Top Gun fighter pilots come to train. My husband actually works with them, so that's a really fun experience. I am 26 years old. I was diagnosed 3 years ago in Beaufort, South Carolina, at a local office, and then I was transferred to the Medical University of South Carolina. As Kimberly said, I am a new mom. My daughter is about to turn 1 in a week, which is crazy to me. But my comfy space is usually out on the couch with Leia, don't hate me, my heating pad on full blast.
Oh, yeah.
And but I'm currently in the bedroom because if I were out in my living room, my dogs would be barking to high heavens. So I'm in my bed right now just with my cozy blanket and pillows. So that's where I am right now.
I don't hate the heating pad. I just hate when you injure yourself with the heating pad. There's a difference.
Oh, have you burned yourself from it? Is that?
Well, one of us has, yeah.
Leia has seen my traumatic second-degree burn pictures from my old days. And I forgot to say, like Angie, I was diagnosed in 2014 too. So it's our 10-year anniversary. Just have some sort of Zoom party. But yeah, so 10 years. But in those early years, oh yeah, I depended on, it felt better to burn my skin and mutilate it into bleeding where I didn't even notice than to feel the muscular contraction. So Leia has seen the pictures. They are devastatingly ugly, and she's traumatized.
Leia, are you okay? Okay. All right. We'll give Leia a moment. So we've all been
Speaking of
sorry.
pads,
I just want to give Leia a moment. Let's just take a moment.
speaking of heating pads, I was like 10 around.
Okay. Leia, you with us?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm really stimulated by the light and stuff.
Do you want to put darker glasses on?
Can I?
Of course. Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Don't seize because you don't have the right glasses, you know?
Exactly. I think that's one thing we've learned from each other is that in this disease, forget your vanity, forget other people's comfort to the extent where you're not hurting anybody. But if you have to wear dark shades and they call you, Joe Hollywood or whatever, it doesn't matter because you're able to be there because of those earplugs, soundproof buds and glasses. Now I just go however I'm feeling and people can make whatever judgments they want.
How many of you have found that you do need to wear dark glasses at times to reduce visual stimulation? Just show your hands. Okay. And then how many of you have noticed your vocal cords impacted by SPS? All of you. How many of you have had to use a cane or a wheelchair to help you walk? And how many of you have had to use headphones? I know Leia does when she travels or she's in big groups, but to reduce the noise stimulation. How often do you do that? You all do it. Yeah. Okay. Not every SPS patient has the same symptoms. We know this. It's a spectrum disease. The spasms, the full body spasms that are so debilitating, so painful, and so hard to watch, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. The first time I ever really saw them was video from Leia. Leia has, I think, the world's most well-documented library, video library of those
Agreed.
spasms. But now we've seen one on the silver screen with Celine Dion. And I want to start there because here I am starting near the end of the documentary, the denouement, right, of the documentary, where Celine is clearly in a deep spasm, almost, trance-like state. You can see how extremely rigid her fingers are, her entire body is, the pain, the inability to communicate. How many of you have experienced, let's call it a seizure, something that looks just like that in the last 5 years?
I haven't watched the documentary, but the last time I had bad seizures, I ended up breaking some bones. I needed 12 foot surgery on my shoulder.
Right.
And
So,
that was just, the surgery was last year, June.
yeah. So,
And I'll just interject that, we use the word seizure, and as a psychiatrist in neurology, we're really close. Seizure, we're not talking about an epileptic seizure, which is when the waveforms all
Yeah.
sync up in the brain and then you have, some jerking of the body. But we are talking about, we call it seizing because in a second, all the muscles seize up. And I think, like you said, at the end of the documentary, to show what she went through when she was just laying down to have maybe a massage or some physio work, and that's when it happened. You never know when it's going to happen.
well, and I'm
And
glad
as
you
you get
clarified that, because I think when we say a flare or we say, what are the other words we use? I don't think the public gets a full understanding of the absolute debilitation and almost otherworldliness, like a brief coma. I mean, and again, you might have to correct me on these medical terms, Dr. Khan, but Leah, we're going to look at some of the video of this exact thing happening to you. I am curious for you, when you saw Celine Dion going through the exact same thing, what did you think?
I was surprised. I was surprised in the sense that, wow, that's quite a. I made a decision, but for her to make that decision, I did not expect it. So I think I have to give her a lot of credit for that.
You
But
mean the
shock-
fact that she was so transparent and letting the world
Oh,
see that?
yes. And,
Totally.
showing your pain is not an easy thing. Definitely not when you're a public figure, I can imagine. But, you use the word epileptic seizure or seizure. And the reason why I have that much footage, unfortunately, is because my brother has epilepsy and my mom has learned that videos are extremely important. So she documents every single thing that looks out of the ordinary. At the beginning, she did that a lot, and that's helped tremendously.
Well, to that point, when you went to Dr. Scott Newsom at the SPS Center, Johns Hopkins, did you show him those videos of you in spasm?
So I had my list, my folder of videos, and my list of 100 questions. And it did say, I wish all my patrons came as well prepared as you did, because it really helps a lot.
Your videos this long time ago when you shared them, I didn't have any. And when I was, just starting to roll into this after diagnosis, maybe 2 years in, I was with my husband and I didn't know what was going on, but I knew it was bad and I knew we should get some photographic or video evidence of it. But I think it's not his thing to watch his wife that way and to be able to do that. And he didn't. And so that's why only when my mom dragged me by the ear to the ER the first time when I was in fellowship here at Yale 2014. And she said, "You're going." And that's the only reason I have any video proof of looking weird and rolling around, not being able to talk. Me not being able to talk. When Leia's video, Kimberly, and your collaboration and your art highlighting her videos, it was all the stuff I had been yapping about for so many years, but people hadn't seen. It was validating. And I thought of Dr. Cushing, who's one of the most famous neurologists in history, because here at Yale in the medical school, they have a Cushing museum, which is fabulous. There's brains in jars lit up with neon, and I love it. It used to be my favorite place to study. And I thought, in my state, when I was in so much pain, I thought, Cushing, neurology, they like to see pictures. Corey, take a pic. He didn't, but then you guys came along, and Leah and Kimberly, you made that happen for me. You made people understand, because it was the exact words and the way I had been describing it. They watched her.
It is my hope that there are people around the world who will watch this documentary and say, this is also my experience. And that they get that similar validating experience, because to be dismissed, to be told you have a psychological condition and nothing else, is just, it's an indignity on top of terrible suffering that is just, it's not fair. Allie, what was it like for you when you saw that moment on camera?
It was incredibly a vulnerable moment. I had a lot of anxiety leading up to it, because they did talk about how they were going to show it. And so I kind of just sat through the whole documentary waiting and okay, when is it going to happen? Like, is this going to like upset me? Is this going to trigger me, cause emotions, which it did. But it also brought me back to prior to my diagnosis. I was still searching for answers through the orthopedic route. I was in Charleston with my husband, and I walked about maybe a block, not very far, and I had my first full body spasm, seizure, episode, whatever you want to call it, where my husband had to go get the car and put me in it, and literally he took my legs and bent them one by one to get me to sit in the car. And I'm sitting there going, I'm so stiff. Is he going to break my leg if he bends it? Like, if he goes to bend it? And that's when I went back to the orthopedic, and we discussed that, this is not an orthopedic issue. This is something else, but it really brought me back to that moment. I count myself to be very lucky. I've only had 2 full-blown episodes in my SPS 3-year journey. I can count 3 technically, about 15 years ago, when I was, I think 10 or 11. I woke up one day and my entire left leg was in a Charlie horse. So not a full body episode, but the symptoms were there. So that's another thing I know we'll talk about. But Celine Dion talking about 17 years worth of symptoms, not necessarily brushed off. She admits part of it was, gotta keep going. I'm Celine Dion, I gotta keep going. Which
The
I
show
think we
must
can
go on, kind of
the
thing.
show must go on. Exactly. Which in some way, shape, or form we can all relate to, because we all had careers. We all had things that we were doing that didn't warrant the time for us to say, press the brakes, let's figure out what's going on. And 17 years just shows how long it takes for some people to get diagnosed, even the person who has the most resources
right.
available to her. So it brought up a lot of emotion for me, good and bad, because it brought up some really bad memories from myself, but also that she was willing to put herself out there, be that vulnerable. And I will say I was very pleasantly surprised. I don't think the interviews that we saw got us ready for just how powerful this documentary actually was.
My first reaction was involuntary. It just came out of my mouth. I watched the documentary twice, back to back, by myself, and a third time again, so I could get through the emotion of that moment. But when the minute it started, I saw it coming. I saw the full body seize coming right before. Her, her main medical a guy with her, a guy who's trying to attempt physio with her, and right before he yelled out she's in full seize, I was like, well, no kidding. Yeah, she is, and she's in crisis, yes. And
you've been told never to do physiotherapy, right? That it could trigger things.
Every single time I have, it's triggered a full body seize, like what Celine has experienced. So even, Johns Hopkins has told me, don't do it. That's just crazy. It can exacerbate the SPS. It can make your situation worse. You won't be able to breathe. All those things are true for me. And for a lot of SPS patients. But my first viewing of her full seize, Celine's on her documentary, was just like this came out of my mouth. It was just like, oh my God, like an immediate connection of understanding exactly what that moment feels like. Then the next feeling I had was, I wish I had a team of people to lift me up and give a crap about me when I was on the ground seizing, because that could have made all the difference in not having broken bones, torn and ripped muscle fibers in my body that can never be repaired, because I didn't have a team of men to lift me and be so tender with me and have the medical knowledge of how to lift you carefully so they don't touch you in a way that hurts you further, and also get you the proper medications that were absolutely ordered right away, get you the nasal spray that is needed when nothing else will work. So I was just amazed at how much time and care and tenderness they took with her to be so attentive. I just, a whole team waiting on you. I just think, oh, I wish every SPS patient who had this moment, we most of us do know at least what a spasm, what a full body spasm or seize is like. And I've had many of those that Celine showed. I'm glad she showed it. I was just like, wow, we all deserve that kind of attention and care, especially in crisis.
That is so beautifully said. Leah, it's interesting. What happened to Leah at the beginning of this call was similar to what happened to Celine and led to her spasm. So in the documentary, they showed Celine working so hard to get a song just right. And then she had the physiotherapy and she was stimulated and exhausted. And she was told, you were overstimulated and this is what triggered the spasm likely. And that caused her to go in a little bit of a panic. Like, well, wait, but that's what I love to do. So I need to get back at it tomorrow, and almost train like an athlete. And they said, no, it's as though you've been run over by a truck. You need to rest. So what just happened to you, Leah? Same thing. You came in quite stimulated, excited about this call, ready to do this, feeling pretty good. And then tell us what happened with the lights in your body, and something happened for you in terms of stimulation.
Yeah. So in order to have good aesthetics for the panel, there's a lot of light. And because I just came out of hospital, like literally hours ago, from my tube surgeries, I said I would mention it again. Sorry. From my two surgeries, I'm a bit weaker than my usual self. I mean, to some extent, I mean, I have had septic shock 4 months ago. I've gone downhill, but there are a few things that still work from everything that I used to do and take. But immediately now, the strong light was a no-no. And I know myself. So that's the difference also. I think it's a little bit more understanding your body faster, quicker, so that you don't go into, I mean, I didn't want to go into spasm too much in order to take something to calm me down. So the glasses are doing it for now. Now, how long will I last? Not very long on the call anymore. But like, it's learning how to deal with certain situations, because for me, the bright light today is way too much.
Let's talk about the documentary for a moment. And was there a moment that there was something that really bothered you that you said, okay, I'd like to correct the record in what I'm seeing here, or fix what I think will be an immediate misunderstanding by the public?
I felt for Celine Dion when she said something to the effect of, I worry if people see me having a good time with my family out, that I'm not touring, and they bought tickets or they couldn't see her show. And I felt for her at that moment, because it does, not only does our anxiety that falls under the umbrella of the disease not make you want to leave the house and things like that, but also the fears of, okay, if I take a bunch of meds, and we all kind of know what gets us out of the house for how long and what assistive devices we need. But if you're caught in that moment looking good, and even if it's for 2 hours and you're going to pay the whole next day, people don't know that. And so I felt for her in that moment, and I wanted to put a point on it, actually, not disagree with it as much as put a point on it and say, it makes you afraid that people are going to see you and think that you're more well than you are, and that somehow you're a fraud and you're lying to them, and they're the only ones you're not seeing or talking to, or something like that.
Very good point.
And although hers is on the broad scale, I felt it. So we might be able to do a little showmanship, but it is for a time limited time, and I think we all pay the price.
Well,
Does that
pay the
sound
price.
right?
Those are the exact words that Celine used over and over again, that you pay a
And
price.
I'd like to add to that, I've never been told I look sicker since I came out of septic shock and have, well, now it's grown, but like had no hair and got skinny, lost 18 kilos, which is part of a repercussion of, but did I need to get to that stage to be acknowledged as someone that is sick with something that is very, very heavy? And we all know how difficult it is. I mean,
Well, they call SPS an invisible disease. You know, many rare diseases are. But Leah, the progression of your disease has become more visible. It is true that people can see that you're not as well looking today as you were 1 year ago. Is that a bad thing that people now are paying attention? I think it's human nature. So that is part of the spectrum of this disease. And that is one of the main points each of you has said you want the world to understand. It can look like that. It can look both ways.
I wanted to add that, right before she has her big episode towards the end, she's laughing. She's literally laughing, having a good time, having a conversation with her doctor, her therapist, or whoever he is. And then all of a sudden, bang, she's like without warning in a full blown episode. And I really related to that. It's a non-SPS injury, but I injured my shoulder, and so they have me in therapy. And, that's, like we've heard before, a really tricky line to be on, you know. And I had my initial evaluation where all she did was touch my right arm. She did not touch any other part of my body, just my right arm. And I actually posted on Instagram where you could see that my right arm had ballooned double the size of my left arm, just from the touch, just from her touching me and feeling it. That night into the following day, I had full body spasms just from being touched on my right arm.
When Celine is lying on her side in spasm and one of her arms is far back, and her caregiver had the thought to say, I'm going to lift her so we can move this arm, right? But if you don't have that team lifting you gently, paying attention to your contortion, knowing what to do, the injuries that you all talk about, from the tearing of muscles and tendons, ligaments, and even breaking bones, that's where it happens. Angie, is there another point you wanted to punctuate?
Just to underscore that it definitely is not an invisible disease for me. My doctors see me coming and they can go ahead and start panicking when they hear the rollator coming down the hall. And they're like, here she is. She can't actually, we're going to have to help her be able to sit down for an examination if they need me to sit. Because I'm so very rigid, it's difficult to even, I'm even down to losing the loss of using my feet, just being able to kind of shuffle is difficult. So I've been in wheelchairs, I've been at rollators mostly. It's very visible for me, and I often just, it is just crazy that 1 minute, like what Celine was doing, like what Ali was saying, you can be so happy and just enjoying a beautiful moment. And I think SPS is such a thief of so many things, but it steals the joyful moment. I mean, it tries to. You have to hold on to it. You have to remember it later, and often the people you're with hopefully will remind you of that. My husband does that for me. But I will be so happy. We'll be laughing at a comedy, or we're watching together on TV, and I go, ha, and then I'll just start, I'm like, what is going, why? I was having such a great time and I didn't feel any particular trigger happening or anything like that. They just it just starts to happen. And then he is a lot like Ilea's husband. My husband doesn't want to reach for the phone and document. He's so worried and so panicked. He's
I
always
call it big eyes.
yes, and I'm like, I'm trying to speak. I'm like much yeah, it's impossible. It's incredibly visible. In fact, it's overwhelming for him and for my doctors. But I've really felt Celine sees, because that's how mine go, pretty much. And they can go worse too. If I had a team of people, maybe a little, more easy to handle, but it's not when it's just you and your husband or you're alone.
I know all of you are frustrated by that. And part of why I think the word I would choose for this documentary is important. And part of why I think it's important is because of all of the things you're talking about, the invisibility versus the visibility. I wanted to touch on if there was any moment that upset you or made you even cry. I bring that up because the moment for me was early on when they make the 911 call. And not just because of Celine's suffering, because seeing anyone suffer is, pulls at my heart. What really pulled at my heart was the lack of knowledge people have about SPS, the panic that yes, she's suffering. They don't know why. They don't know what to do. They're strapping her in the gurney. And that made me feel tearful, the lack of knowledge about SPS.
It was again also very early on in the documentary. She says, you never want to be a rarity in medicine or science. You never want to be rare. Everyone who watches House or Grey's Anatomy, they see these doctors that are like, I'm going to do everything in my power to get this diagnosis. And then at the end of the episode, they get their happy, ever-ending
Yeah.
episode diagnosis. And that's not how it is in real life. We're fighting, and it's fun and it's joyful and it's uplifting when Dr. House makes that super rare diagnosis. But when you're sitting here and you have that diagnosis and every doctor you see goes, huh, I've never heard of that. I remember just sitting there going, wow, she's so right. You want your diagnosis, you want to know what you have, but then you get it and still no one can help you. You're back to where you were pre-diagnosis. And I remember I started crying because I was like, no one can help me. Even now with a name, no one can help me.
That for me was the biggest moment, because I've written about it already back when I actually realized, because it took me a while. The day I got diagnosed was the happiest day of my life. The moment I realized what SPS was and how no one knew anything about it, and it was progressing. My SPS, unfortunately, has progressed. I mean, hoping to stop progressing, still keeping realistic outlook on life. But the moment I realized no one knew, and no one understood, and there were no real, I go back to the plasters. We don't have proper treatments, we have plasters, and it's scary. Like Allison said, I never thought about it that way, because I always try to get up in the morning and just do what I need to do because I've decided to do it. And but like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. We would say we have band-aids, right? Same idea. So I've asked each of you if you could think of one word that you would use to describe the outcome of Celine's documentary. I used the word important. Ilea, what's your one word?
I would have to say grateful for the vulnerability shown. I wasn't sure that was going to happen. And I think it was important for people to see it, just as it was important for our community, social media, to see Leia at the beginning. This is another big step. And so I was grateful that she had the courage and the, I guess, care for the community. She might not have said it in words, but she did show herself being incredibly vulnerable, and to have, you know, a public persona to protect. It was courageous. So grateful that I think I was prepared to be disappointed, horrified, shocked, just to be like a musical retrospective on someone's life, which is beautiful with a little sprinkling of SPS. And it wasn't that. And maybe I wanted more from it or whatever, but I'm grateful.
Angie?
I would use the word, and it may be unusual, but I would use the word curiosity, because I've been getting inundated with messages from people all over the world asking, what is this like? We watched Celine, and so, in her documentary. So what is it like for all of you, for everyday people with SPS? Do you go through this? Can you tell me more? I think my daughter has it. Oh, my daughter just got diagnosed and she's 14. Where can I get help? All these. So I think it really did generate a lot of public interest, awareness, and even help them to understand how they could receive help and the resources that were out there, and the fact that we as patient advocates are out there to contact and ask them. That's what I still keep getting them. I'm trying to help people direct, kind of like an air traffic controller directing the right areas, like go here, ask this person, call this number.
Well,
Email this.
even in your live interview you did at the North Carolina TV station, they just let you go. It was like Professor Davis just said, you would pause and then you'd say, well, and another thing, and they didn't step in, so you just kept teaching. It was really, so curiosity, I think, is a really, really good one. What about for you, Ali? What's your one word in reaction to the documentary?
I think I would say revealing. It reveals a lot. That I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with Angie's answer of curiosity. You've got the, curiosity of people who might be looking for a diagnosis, might be newly diagnosed, and revealing part of, well, what does treatment look for Celine Dion? Okay, that doesn't encompass treatment for everyone, but it is a good starting place. And like Angie said, and like Aaliyah said, I thought it was going to be sprinklings of SPS in this documentary, not take up the abundance of the documentary. And so I think it reveals a lot more about what patients can do, what people who are thinking they might have it can do. Also, as Angie said, reach out to us. Even though I'm on private, you can still message me and I'll see that I have a request from someone. Or you can go to my other Instagram, which is at sitting_strong. That one is public. So just really revealing in what options are out there. And while Celine is just one person whose diagnosis and treatment is one thing and everybody else's is going to be something different. It's a stepping stone for people looking for an answer. And I think it really reveals that.
Nice. Leah, your one word?
Not one word, all your words put together. And if people are smart enough, meaning that we need more research. And that I was skeptical, that I was proven wrong. Very much so. And although her story tells her story, because each SPS patient has a different story, I was not expecting that vulnerability. Um, it almost takes detachment, denial, or a lot of guts to show your pain to the world.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to say, and as a physician, I'm almost embarrassed that it took me 10 years to get to this point, and it took me Leah grabbing me and saying, no, we're doing something, because you have a unique perspective, and we did Heart to Heart as a spin-off of Bent Not Broken. And I think that I was trying to hide. I still try to hide so that if I get in a spastic episode like she did, that nobody sees it except me, which is not only dangerous and stupid and psychologically damaging, and I should know better, but that instinct to hide how much you lose control is still much within me. I love being alone. I like falling alone. That sounds crazy, but I know I can deal. I asked, one of my patients had a coach once that said, are you hurt or are you injured? So when I fall, that's the first thing I ask myself in my head, are you hurt or are you injured? And I proceed, and it's almost easier without the loving big eyes that don't know what to do with you. So I think it was hard for me to see, she's accepting help and you're not, Ilea. After 10 years, you have issues with accepting help and being vulnerable and being out there with your disease. I consider myself out, and I was very much in, and that's not a great way to be, because doctors respond to evidence and research, which is what we need funds for, because that's what empowers doctor and makes them feel good to say, this sounds like SPS, or this doesn't sound like SPS, but it sounds like something like this. It leads you on the right track. There's a fear amongst doctors, and this grosses me out, but I'm going to say it because I've heard it. Oh, well, she's going to come out with this documentary and then everybody's going to start saying they have SPS. And I was like, whoa, people don't usually, and a lot of us, because of our energy, I think sometimes our excess energy, are pretty high achieving folks, whether it's motherhood or whether it was, a career, we're go, go, go until you get medicated and you're like, oh, this is nicer. But, I think that something about that, and us getting, I don't know, that recognition. And
when you are having your episodes, are you 100% aware? Because it looks like there are moments where you're not with us.
That's when a lot of pain takes over. And my mom does it, or, at the beginning, because I have them less than I've had them again since my health has gone down. But my mom's voice, and breathe, Leia, breathe, she says it in French.
Yeah. Respire, respire, mommy, respire, s'il te plaît.
A lot of time kind of brings me back in. And it's weird because when I had my septic shock and I was out of it, her voice and my husband's voice.
So you can hear them, and it does have an effect on you.
I think so. For me, it has a soothing effect. I wish it had a healing effect, but it does have a very soothing effect. The last spasm we saw of Celine Dion, that's the spasm. That's the one where you mentioned that you lose me. And it's the pain that, and it's my mom's voice that brings me back, because it's listening to something familiar that is soothing, that is loving, Doesn't fix it, but at least it brings me back not to go into that delirious pain.
Do you ever get to the point, any of you, where you think, I'm not going to come back from this? Like, this may kill me.
Yes. Yes. There have been a couple of times where I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. And I did my best. And then I think, it's so much that if I do pass, it's okay, because I can't take it anymore. And I, just like Alea said, I will have my husband next to me and I will be hearing his voice going, breathe, breathe. Angela, breathe, breathe. And I hear him and he's like, please, sweetheart, my love, breathe, breathe. And somehow I fight my way back, hearing his voice guiding me, because somebody is there who loves you 100% and doesn't want you to give up, doesn't want you to just give in either. I don't mean to say give in, because it's not like we have a choice. It's our bodies are in a complete seizure. What they describe in Celine Dion's seizing moment at the end of her doco. It's like a crisis. You're into complete seize crisis. And we don't have a team of people around me to measure my pulse and turn me around and be with me through till it ends, and then even stay with you afterward. I have my husband to do that. And I'm just lucky that he's around when it happens. There have been times when I've been alone and I've had to fight. We know what that's like. You just fight your way back as best as you can. But it's my husband's voice that brings me back and it makes me not just be like, okay, I can just keep doing this for the 100th damn time. I can keep seizing and find my way through it somehow, and magically I pull it out from just the bottom of my soul, all the strength to come back. And I can hear his voice and it guides me to return, to begin to start to breathe. Even if it's just little wispy breaths at first, at least I can draw in oxygen into my body, into my muscles. And then it's just the whole process of coming back and the aftermath. I'm glad I have someone there. I think that it would be maybe too easy if someone weren't there. I'm grateful someone has a team. I think we all should have a team of people to be with us. All SPS patients who experience this should have this benefit.
I saw Allie wipe a tear. Tell me what's going through your mind.
No, just what Angie said just has me emotional. Yes, there have been moments where it's like, oh my God, I think this is it. This is going to be the one that takes me. And then you get out of it and you go, oh, silly me. Like it was just another episode. Like, but then there's the other side of the coin where, and I know I've struggled with this a lot and I've been very open with my mental health struggles with SPS, but there's the other side of the coin where it's like, what if I just stop it? What if I do something to stop it for good? And from the people that I've talked to, almost everyone has had that thought at some point. But then you come and you meet people like Leia and Aaliyah and Angie and Kimberly, and you have all these people who are telling you that if you go out and you do that, you're no better off. Yes, the pain, it hurts, it comes and it goes, but we are here, we are advocating. But I'd be lying to people if there weren't moments in my journey where I said, God, I'm done. There's just a point where, people say they just want to veer their car off a bridge. And I can empathize and sympathize and understand why people say that. Why there are people who get to a point that say, enough is enough, I can't do this. And my heart breaks because we don't know how many people are undiagnosed. They go undiagnosed and they do end up hurting themselves or taking their own lives because of this. And that's a big aspect of SPS that really hasn't been talked about. But what Angie said is just having that team, and even having that team in that moment thinking, I have everyone around me that I love, and I still think this might be it. This might be the end, is the most terrifying thing. I mean, I remember going under for an MRI. Things went awry, things went wrong. I had a spasm, and I was surrounded by doctors and nurses. I was in the best care. And I remember just thinking, my husband and my daughter are in a room across the hall, and I'm going to die on this table. And the last thing I said to them was, like, see you in an hour. So I think there's that aspect of it that, you know, there's always that fear in the back of your mind, and it will never leave you as long as you have this disease.
Speaking of vulnerability, I appreciate you sharing that. I think if anyone's watching to this point, anyone who has those thoughts, especially continuously, psychiatric care is essential to this. Because, like you said, you have your husband loving you, waiting across the hallway, and your baby girl who needs her mom. But sometimes that's just not enough. And so, and when you feel that way, you must reach out for help. You
Yes.
must, and include that in part of your care.
And
Eileen,
I have to jump in as a psychiatrist. Pain is an evident, by the evidence and the research, is a real risk factor for suicidality. The process of getting to that place, it is a process. That's how we get people out of it, by taking them out in a suicide plan. First, you're going to call this person, then you're going to clean your room, then you're going to take a shower and get yourself out of that place. But in psychiatry, we do it all the time, and we do it for chronic pain patients as easily as for any other psychiatric diagnosis, because it is a risk factor. And our pain, I think what you said about the photos, I think what you'll see for me, I'm going to be a little brave, the grotesque, because you see us and we're a gaggle of girls, but there is so much of this disease that is ugly, and broken bones and smashed faces and dislocated shoulders, and even some of the treatments. I mean, this is my fistula. It's gnarly. It's looking a little more gnarly than normal. That's how I know tomorrow I have to see vascular surgery. So one time I had it fixed. I was in recovery. They removed a clot, angioplasties, blasted with TPA, coolest science ever. I was awake during it. I didn't need that because we're special. We need special anesthesia. So anesthesia, listen up, look at our med list, and treat us accordingly so that we're not awake during surgery. But after that, I was in recovery, and I had a moment alone. My parents were picking me up outside, and I knew they were waiting, and they were waiting for me to come out of recovery. And I slid my arm. It had been a while to make the bleeding stop, which is fine. And it stopped. So they were letting me go. I was alone in the bay with the curtains, and I slid my arm into my coat, and I saw the blood plop, plop, plop. And I started to feel that cold, cozy feeling of I'm losing blood. I mean, that's just the feeling of, hemorrhage. And I thought at that moment, if I just let it go and don't say anything, I never have to go through this again. I never have to feel it again. And I know that sounds dramatic maybe to some audience members, but like, we're all saying it, guys. It is brutal. Our pain tolerance is through the roof. When they ask 0 through 10, where's your pain? I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that, because we cope so well so much of the day with it, that if it reaches a certain point, it's epic pain. And I've treated a lot of patients that are in a lot of physical pain and a lot of mental pain, and the combination of both. This disease takes the cake. And since there's only a few of us in the world, really, I understand why there's lack of funding, lack of attention, but we suffer so intensely. We can't have lack of funding, lack of attention. It's that debilitating, it's that grotesque, and it's that dangerous. Because if you fall instead of on your face but on the back of your head, you're at risk of a brain bleed. And, you know, we're just like anybody else. And fall risk is a huge thing in medicine. We assess it and somehow we fly under the radar. And a lot of us are the biggest fall risks that I've ever known. If I was doing a fall risk assessment, I'd be like, whoa, you shouldn't even move out of the bed, stay there. So I think the grotesque is like kind of what people need to see. And I know it's gross. People don't want to see broken bones and black eyes and, you know, dislocated shoulders and stuff, but that's what we go through daily, weekly, monthly, wherever we are. And it's a trip. And I think that it is, I don't know, I think it needs to be seen. And I think, you know, the documentary was a step in that direction. So I hope we just continue to show not only this good and suggestions and tips, but the reality in maybe it's easier in photographic evidence, but this is brutal. This is brutal.
For someone that's quite rational, and that's how I see myself, someone that wants to advocate and that, you know, got all of us together and wanted to do the panel. Yeah, guys, I'm saying it out loud. I'm sorry to disappoint you if it disappoints anyone that follows Bent Not Broken. It's not the disease that'll kill me, it's the pain. And it's my truth. And if you talk about it, it means you're not there yet at all. So that's a very good sign. But I mean, maybe it's just to speak out about how much pain we are in.
Leah, Ali, Angie, Ilea, and Joy, who joined us at the beginning. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep sharing your story, your SPS stories with the world. Let's keep fundraising for the SPS Center at Johns Hopkins and wherever the best research is happening. And we know we'll keep supporting each other.